Hi, this is Curious Mystics Podcast, formerly Spiritual Mamas Podcast. Together we explore the mysteries of the spiritual world, sometimes boldly,
Sometimes cautiously.
but always with open hearts.
And curious minds.
Let's go. Hey friends, it's Aericka. Before we get into today's amazing episode, I wanted to talk to you about Full Circle Forestry Collective. It's a new nonprofit that my brother Paul and a few of his friends have put together in the wake of Hurricane Helene. Hurricane Helene devastated Western North Carolina, and they are still trying to dig out from underneath of it. And what Full Circle Forestry Collective does is they give free storm debris cleanup and then use that debris to give back to the community in the form of free lumber and firewood. They're currently taking donations to get insurance so that they can start this project and get it up and running by August. So if you feel so called or feel aligned with this, please go to fullcircleforestry.org and donate on their website. Again, that's Full Circle Forestry Collective. They would love your help, and it's an amazing organization. Thank you so much, and let's get into today's episode. Hello.
Hello and welcome.
I'm Aericka.
And I'm Kim.
And this is Curious Mystics Podcast. Welcome back. Thanks for being here.
Yes, as always.
So, what are we up to this morning, Kim?
Not much. Not much today. Trying to survive this heat wave. Trying to do as little as possible. I think that's kind of been my go-to. Yesterday, today, probably tomorrow.
Yeah, it's so funny. I just I edited a podcast that we recorded already, and we were talking about how it was like 50 degrees. And we mentioned that, when this comes out, it's going to sound silly. Yeah, it's going to sound silly because it's like 104 degrees right now. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so it's funny. Yeah, it is crazy. Definitely is crazy. This weekend I decided to reattempt a garden, which, if anybody knows me, has been the bane of my existence for years. I cannot get a garden to grow for anything. I don't know it's where we live. I don't know it's me. So I put it in our front yard now, and it's just a little baby garden. So I blessed the ground. I made offerings. So I'm putting good energy into it. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, you sent pictures and it looked really beautiful. So I'm hoping that it turns out really well for you.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, we had hydrangeas all in the front, and one of them just didn't grow again this year.
Yeah.
So I just tore that out and put the garden there. So we'll see. So.
I was just thinking about, well, we'll get into it at some point, but I was just thinking about plants today and how my plants in general, just like all the ones that I have in the house, are not at their best, and I want to put in like the time and energy for them, but there's so much going on in here right now that I think I'm going to wait until I'm ready to do that, but I'm looking forward to it. It always makes me feel better.
Yeah, so this is actually the first time this is the first time in like 5 years I've done anything to the outside of our house. And I've always done planting in the morning, like in the front yard every year. And it's just like a testament to like my mental health as to how bad the outside looked. So, and I was thinking about that last year, and still just wasn't ready to do anything about it. And this year I was like, yeah, no, cannot go another year with this looking like this. So.
It's got to change.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
So, all right. So today we're going to be talking about um, different modalities for healing, which this was supposed to be the first of this two-part series that we did, but for whatever reason, when we recorded this last time, it didn't come out right. So, so we're re-recording, and so this will be the second one.
Okay.
So today we are talking about Chinese medicine and a number of other things. There's going to be Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, and I can't remember. I think that's it. But, and acupuncture.
Okay.
Anyway, so traditional Chinese medicine, TCM, is an ancient healing method that is over 3,500 years old.
I feel like I've heard repeatedly that it's not the oldest, but one of the oldest practiced, like still practiced today.
So when I was doing the research, it was like the Chinese medicine and Ayurveda were like dueling it out for who was the oldest. So, so as far as like documentation, 3,500 years ago is when Chinese medicine was first documented, and it's rooted in the idea that everything is connected. Your physical body, your emotions, your lifestyle, even like the environment around you.
Yeah.
Which we've talked about tons of times. We definitely agree with that. We've seen it in our own practices. We've seen it in our own bodies. So it's based on the concept of qi, which is your life energy. And qi flows through pathways in the body called meridians. When that energy flows freely, we feel balanced physically, emotionally, and mentally. But if the flow is blocked or stagnant or out of harmony, that's when issues start to show up. And we've talked about this kind of in our chakra episode. Yeah. So those issues might not just be like a sore oh my gosh.
Words today.
A sore shoulder or digestive troubles. They could be sadness and irritability and fatigue. And like I said, when your chakras are out of alignment, which are energy gateways, we see the same thing. So TCM also works with yin and yang, which are opposite but complementary forces like light and dark, rest and movement, moisture and dryness. Health comes from their dynamic balance. And then there's the 5 elements: wood, fire, earth, metal, and water, which each relate to an organ system, emotion, and personality traits.
Yes.
So
all about keeping things in balance with all of those.
Yeah, I like this 5 elements piece to it. I feel like that's not in other cultures. Well, I take that back. Ayurveda it kind of goes off of cold and hot, but it doesn't necessarily go off of the elements. So I thought that was an interesting piece to it, and it makes sense. So TCM incorporates acupuncture, moxibustion, which is a burning of herbs near or on the body, cupping, massage, herbal remedies, movement, and concentration exercises like Tai Chi and Qigong, which we talked about last episode. You're the last one of these. So instead of asking what disease is this, like Western medicine often does, TCM asks what's out of balance. What patterns are showing up in the whole system?
Yeah.
So that's kind of like the breakdown of Chinese medicine. It's way more complicated, but it uses these different modalities such as the acupuncture and Qigong and stuff like that to treat what needs to be treated. So I'm going to go into acupuncture. Acupuncture. So you do acupressure. Or is it puncture?
I have been trained in acupuncture and acupressure, but only for the ear. So there's 5 specific spots in the ear that I've been trained in. There are over 200 spots in the ear, so it's not like an in-depth acupuncture, I wouldn't say. But the specific method that I've been trained in, I can do acupuncture and or acupressure.
And what is it for? What does it treat?
The training that I did, specifically the setting that I was using it in, was for substance use rehab. So we were doing, it's called AcuDetox. The method is called AcuDetox. However, those same points that we've learned also can be used for mental health in general or other ailments. So it's kind of a little complex just because I received the training while I was working in this facility. It was geared towards that specific thing, but it has much broader uses and applications, and it's just a matter of knowing what you're going in for.
Yeah. I think that's awesome. 200 in the ear alone. The ears are not very big.
No. It was wild. When I ever heard that and then saw the actual points, I was like, that seems impossible. It almost seems like there's not a way of touching the ear without hitting a point, which in reality is true. So you have to really know what you're gearing it towards, where you want to affect, really.
Yeah. So acupuncture is one of the core therapies within TCM. It's about tapping into the meridians. And there are 20 meridians.
Okay.
12 main ones and 8 secondary. Each point has a different effect on the chi that goes through it.
Okay.
The idea is to work on the energy highways in the body to restore flow and balance. The acupuncturist places ultrafine needles at very specific points that correspond to different organs, emotions, or systems. It's like dialing into your body's internal wiring.
Yeah, I recall learning that. When I learned that method, we talked a lot about like the 12 main meridians. We didn't really talk about the other ones, so it's interesting to realize like how in depth it can be.
Yeah. Did you have acupuncture on yourself?
I have. During the training, they did the method that we were learning, and we were also taught to be able to do it to ourselves, that same training, that same method. I haven't had acupuncture in any other way, but I'm totally open to it.
Yeah, I've had it a number of times. When I worked at the naturopath's office, I worked with, there was a acupuncturist there, and she was amazing, and it was very helpful. I liked it. Each point is like a little energetic switch. Some calm the nervous system. Others improve digestion or help release emotional tension. So the cool thing is like the needles aren't injecting anything. They're simply signaling the body to shift back into a healing state.
Yeah. It's kind of like you see that you can assess and see, okay, this meridian that might be out of alignment, this point may be needing to be, addressed in some way, and you're able to kind of like hone in on it and work directly with that line.
Yeah. There are studies that have shown acupuncture can increase blood flow, release endorphins, calm inflammation, and regulate the nervous system. One of the theories on how this works is that pain impulses are blocked from reaching the spinal cord or brain at various gates to these areas. Since the majority of acupuncture points are either connected to or located near neural structures, this suggests that acupuncture stimulates the nervous system.
Yeah.
Not that there's chi, that couldn't be the only,
Yes, of course.
the only reason. Another theory suggests that acupuncture stimulates the body to produce endorphins, which reduces pain. Other studies have found that a natural opioid like pain reliever may be released into the body during acupuncture treatment.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we discussed with the specific method that I had learned, because plenty of people might be coming off of opioids in some way. So this can also help provide relief in having a similar type of feeling without using drugs.
That's cool. I like that. Interesting.
Yeah.
So, in the late 1970s, the World Health Organization recognized the ability of acupuncture and Oriental medicine to treat nearly 4 dozen common ailments, including neuromuscular conditions such as arthritis, neuralgia, insomnia, dizziness, and neck and shoulder pain, emotional and psychological disorders such as depression and anxiety, and apparently addiction, circulatory disorders such as hypertension, angina, atherosclerosis, and anemia, addictions to alcohol, nicotine, and other drugs, respiratory disorders such as emphysema, sinusitis, allergies and bronchitis, gastroenterological, GI conditions such as food allergies, ulcers, chronic diarrhea, constipation, indigestion, intestinal weakness, and anorexia and gastritis.
That's like everything.
I was gonna say, like everything.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing about acupuncture is it's been very much studied. And I don't know why it's so studied. I don't know. I don't know why it's one of the more studied things and more accepted things.
It's really interesting because on the one hand, you can look at that and say, well, it's been around forever, so there's been plenty of opportunity to study it. But on the other hand, so many other things have been around forever and aren't studied. So there's something about like the gravitation toward acupuncture and when it's used and how it can be used and the effects of it that people really want to understand more.
Plus I think it's like sticking something into the body and maybe they can measure that easier. I don't know.
Yeah, true.
I don't know. In 1997, a consensus statement released by the National Institute of Health found that acupuncture could be useful by itself or in combination with other therapies to treat addiction, headaches, menstrual cramps, tennis elbow, fibromyalgia, myofascial pain, osteoarthritis, lower back pain, carpal tunnel syndrome, and asthma.
Yeah.
So just the other things that weren't studied in the 1970s.
Yeah. Just the rest of the stuff.
Just the rest of the stuff. I love how it's like randomly tennis elbow, not golfer's elbow.
No.
But tennis elbow. There are two different things.
Yep.
Other studies have demonstrated that acupuncture may help in the rehabilitation of stroke patients and can relieve nausea in patients recovering from surgery. I have seen where post-op patients have gotten acupuncture. But honestly, a lot of people, it just feels different. It can bring the dense sense of calm, like your whole system is taking a breath it forgot needed. You might go in for neck and back pain, but you leave feeling lighter emotionally too.
Yeah.
Because it's treating the root, not just the symptom.
Right. That's one of the things that I appreciate about it so much, about acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine in general and other complementary forms of treatment, is like looking at the whole picture. You had mentioned before in a previous episode how if a patient came in and they were complaining about like having to go to the bathroom all the time and it's, they're getting up in the middle of the night, they're stubbing their toe, they have depression, there's all of these other things that need to be addressed, not just the presenting symptom. And it's beneficial to look at all of that, and it can make a huge difference in a person's like quality of life. We could treat the symptom and make that go away or alleviate it in some way, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the problem is fixed.
Yes, exactly. I actually just started reading Letting Go by Dr. Dawkins, I believe, and he was talking about how, trying to think how he explained it, is that so you have neck and back pain. It's not neck and back pain, it's from a repressed or suppressed emotion of some sort. And that is the presenting symptom, is this neck and back pain.
Yeah.
So, and everything is that way. So, like your digestion issues, it's not from a physical problem, it's from an emotional problem at some point. So, I just started. So, I'm interested to see like what the rest of it says, but I found that kind of interesting.
Yeah.
All right, so the next piece is moxibustion, and you can use this in conjunction with acupuncture. Oftentimes, they'll do it in conjunction. So, moxibustion is used in TCM and at times, like I said, in acupuncture, and it helps increase the effects of the acupuncture.
Okay.
It's the burning of herbs, usually mugwort, on or near the skin where there is an issue.
Okay.
I've seen it where it's placed on a little ceramic tile and burned while you're laying there getting your acupuncture. Like it's like put on your body, but it's not like just a little cone of something burning near your body.
Yeah.
Mugwort is said to have a lot of benefits of various elements, like it can help strengthen blood circulation, stimulate the flow of chi, and promote healing and reduce pain. It's apparently also really good for menstrual cramps.
Yeah.
I've seen it in tea form. I feel like I've also seen it in an oil or a salve.
Okay.
And I've seen it in like these little like incense cones almost. And also, this is really cool, it can also help move a baby from breech to normal position.
Yes, I did recently hear about that.
I have no idea how that works, but that's awesome.
Yeah, I don't know how that works either, but I did recently hear, I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about the midwives method, and midwives often incorporate other types of medicine, not just traditional Western medicine. And that can be one of them. If a baby is breached, using mugwort in some way helps to get them into the right position.
I wonder if it's in like the salve or the tea. I don't know. That's interesting.
In the podcast I was listening to, they were using it in tea form. So, yeah.
I would love to know how that works because that's fascinating. So, and in other news, apparently mugwort, if burned as an incense, can ward off negative energy, facilitate astral projection, and vivid dreaming.
Yes. Yeah, I've heard about using mugwort for dreaming goals, whether you want to astral project or vivid dream, lucid dream, get answers in dreams, things like that.
And then in some cultures, it's used for smudging as well.
Interesting.
So that's what I have on Chinese medicine and acupuncture and those sort of things. I didn't really go into some of the others because we've talked about some of the others, or we're going to talk about some of the others. So that's kind of the basis there.
Okay.
So now I'm moving into Ayurveda. And Ayurveda is considered by many scholars to be the oldest healing science. Where did we hear that before?
Yeah.
In Sanskrit, Ayurveda means the science of life.
Okay.
Which I love.
Yeah.
Ayurvedic knowledge originated in India more than 5,000 years ago and is often called the mother of all healing. It stems from the ancient Vedic culture and was taught for many thousands of years in an oral tradition from accomplished masters to their disciples. Some of this knowledge was set to print a few thousand years ago, but apparently much of it is inaccessible because it was thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
The principles of many of the natural healing systems now familiar in the West have their roots in Ayurveda, including homeopathy and polarity therapy. I thought it interesting that homeopathy comes from Ayurveda. I didn't know that. It was really interesting.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. I think there's a lot of things about modern techniques, whether we're talking about medicine or spirituality, religion, anything else. There's modern ways of living that are rooted in very ancient cultures and traditions, and we don't always realize that. We don't always know about it, especially when it's something that had at one point an oral tradition that wasn't well documented.
Right.
It just made it a little bit more difficult to realize the connection or the root
Right.
of what you practice today.
So Ayurveda emphasizes prevention over treatment.
Okay.
It encourages health through close attention to balance in your life, right thinking, diet, lifestyle, and the use of herbs. I like that, right thinking.
Yeah.
Think right,
Yeah.
and then you'll be healthy.
That's all you got to do.
Just think right. The belief is that everyone has their own pattern of energy that is made up of their constitution, which is made up of physical, mental, and emotional characteristics that are given at conception. Our health can be affected when things such as poor diet, stress, weather can mess up the balance in ourselves.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I think the connection in all of this, like, and I've talked about this before, we've talked about this before, but the connection to your environment, nature, the people around you, spirit, yourself, that and balance is like kind of the thread in all of this that holds it all together.
Yeah.
That's similar.
Well, we're not going through the world in a bubble, in isolation.
Yeah.
So everything has to affect us in some way, be it big or small. So I think some people often forget that. I forget that. You know what I mean? Like, if you're not sleeping well, it affects the rest of you. If you are not eating well, it affects how you feel. You know, if your house is messy or cluttered, that can affect your mental health. So, and your creativity.
Absolutely.
When it said that your constitution is given at conception or starts at conception, that reminds me of human design.
Yeah.
So, and human design comes partially from this.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a combination of things, right, that it comes from.
So that kind of speaks to that connection. I like this quote. Balance is the natural order. Imbalance is disorder. Health is order. Disease is disorder. Within the body, there is a constant interaction between order and disorder. When one understands the nature and structure of disorder, one can reestablish order.
That makes me feel like it's not just about, as much as it is about like being in balance, we're not in balance all the time. That's not possible. So like this seesaw going up and down, you don't want it to be stuck in one place too long. Exactly. If it comes down, it has to come back up. And that might happen at a slower pace or a faster pace, but as long as it is doing that consistently, then that's what matters more than just staying still.
I love that analogy. I'm just thinking of like when you were little, like you stood in the middle of the seesaw and your legs had to go like back and forth and back and forth and back to kind of keep you in that balance. And that is 100% kind of how your life is, just kind of working on that constant balance in between two multiple things. So
yeah, I
love that analogy. That's awesome. There are 3 principles or energies in everyone. They are often called doshas. I think I've seen kashas as well. And they are Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. All people have the qualities of Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, but one is usually more primary, one secondary, and then the third is usually the least prominent. The cause of disease in Ayurveda is viewed as a lack of proper cellular function due to an excess or deficiency of Vata, Pitta, or Kapha. Disease can also be caused by the presence of toxins. The 3 doshas are associated with the earth's elements: space, air, fire, water, and earth. Oh, I guess I didn't realize that they were, because we talked about that in the Chinese medicine.
Yeah.
So. I didn't realize that it also went by the elements. The doshas actually remind me, like I said, of the chakras.
Yeah. Hey friends, we just wanted to take a moment to remind you all that you can interact with us on social media. We can be found at Curious Mystics Podcast on all platforms.
And if you haven't already, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share so that we can keep showing up for you guys with new weekly episodes and content. Thank you for hanging out with us so far, and stay curious.
There's that like same, almost like the same type of blueprint and then different ways of looking at it or interpreting it.
All right, so let's go over kind of briefly what the different, like the Vata, Pitta, and Kapha kind of mean.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll start with Vata. Vata is the energy of movement, and it provides the essential motion of all bodily processes and is extremely vital for health.
Okay.
It's most prominent in the fall and at the changes of seasons. And these are the most important times to be careful of diet and lifestyle.
Okay.
On purpose of lifestyle considerations is to stabilize this motion.
Mm-hmm.
Routine is very useful in assisting the Vata individual to effectively ground all this moving energy. A person with Vata predominant energy is blessed with a quick mind, flexibility, and creativity. Mentally, they usually grasp concepts quickly, but they forget them just as quickly.
Mm-hmm. It comes, it goes. We got to make room for something else.
Yes. They are alert, restless, and very active. Vata people walk, talk, and think fast, but are easily fatigued.
Mm-hmm.
They tend to have less willpower, confidence, boldness, and tolerance for fluctuation than other types.
Mm-hmm.
And they often feel unstable and ungrounded. When they're unbalanced, Vata types may become fearful, nervous, and anxious. And in the external world, Vata types tend to earn money quickly and spend it quickly. They're not good planners and as a consequence may suffer economic hardship.
Definitely pros and definitely cons.
Mm-hmm. So since the attributes of Vata are dry, light, cold, rough, subtle, mobile, and clear, any of these qualities in excess can cause imbalance.
Okay.
So if you're in too dry of a climate, if you're in the sun too long, if you're wearing rough clothing, if in excess. So these are like your baseline qualities. So if you have too much of them, then you're going to have an imbalance.
I have a question. I don't know if this is going to make sense, but because for the people who it's the primary. So you'd be drawn more towards that, right? Or no?
That's a good question.
Okay. Because I'm thinking if it's your primary and you're drawn more towards it, then you need to be mindful of, am I drawn more towards it and I'm using it in excess in order to create balance? Or is it just a natural, this is, naturally what's around, but it's not that I am overly drawn toward it?
I don't know if you're drawn toward it. It's kind of like your baseline. Your baseline dry, your baseline cold.
Okay.
Like that sort of thing. So things that could mess it up would be like travel, frequent travel, loud noises, continual stimulation, sugar and alcohol.
Okay.
And also exposure to cold and cold liquids and foods. So it's more, like I said, that's like your base. You're already in this state.
Okay.
So if you're subjected to, so what you're subjected to is what's going to throw you in or out of balance.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's see. There's some dietary considerations.
Mm-hmm.
So general food guidelines for a Vata is for decreasing Vata would be including warm, well-cooked, unctuous foods. Unctuous, that's pungent? Is that another name? Unctuous?
I don't know.
I feel like it's pungent. Anyone know?
Let us know.
And you should have small meals 3 or 4 times a day, and you may snack. as needed while maintaining a 2-hour gap between each meal.
Okay.
So with Ayurvedic medicine, it's very much kind of like protocols.
Mm-hmm.
How you should live your life in these ways to keep yourself in balance.
Mm-hmm.
So gently, there's a ton more here. So I'm on the Ayurvedic Institute website.
Mm-hmm.
So that I'm reading from. So general guidelines for balancing Vata: keep warm, keep calm, avoid cold, frozen, or raw foods, avoid extreme cold, eat warm foods and spices, keep a regular routine, and get plenty of rest.
Mm-hmm.
So that's Vata. What do you think of that? What do you think of Vata?
I think it makes a lot of sense, and being aware of that and being able to lean into or balance yourself out using those specific protocols can make a huge difference in like your outlook, your quality of life, your energy level, and all of that.
All right, moving on to Pitta. Pitta is the energy of digestion and metabolism. Pitta types have many of the qualities of fire. Fire is hot, penetrating, sharp, and agitating. So similarly, Pitta people have warm bodies, penetrating ideas, and sharp intelligence. When out of balance, they can become very agitated and short-tempered. The Pitta body is one of medium height and build with ruddy or coppery skin. They may have moles and freckles. Their skin is warm and less wrinkled than Vata skin. Their hair tends to be silky, and they often experience premature grayness or hair loss. And their eyes are of medium size, and the conjunctiva is moist. The nose is sharp, and the tips tend to be reddish. I love this. It didn't describe that for the Vata.
No, it's interesting that those features can be prominently seen.
Yeah, I guess the Vata was more about like movement attributes than what you physically look like, whereas the Pitta is a little bit more physically what you look like.
Yeah.
That's cool. So the Pitta dominant constitutions have a strong metabolism, good digestion, and strong appetites. And they like plenty of foods and liquids, and they tend to love hot spices and cold drinks. However, it's balanced by sweet, bitter, and astringent tastes. They produce large quantities of urine and feces.
Interesting. I mean, if they have good appetites, that would make sense.
Which tend to be yellowish, soft, and plentiful.
All right.
In case you're wondering.
So you can always, assess that way.
Yeah. Okay. They perspire easily, and their hands and feet stay warm. Pitta people have a lower tolerance for sunlight, heat, and hard physical work. So, they're mentally, Pitta types are alert and intelligent and have good powers of comprehension. However, they're easily agitated, aggressive, and tend towards hate, anger, and jealousy when imbalanced. So, let's see. So since the attributes of Pitta are oily, hot, light, mobile, dispersing, and liquid, an excess of any of these qualities aggravates Pitta. Summer is the time of heat, the Pitta season. Sunburn, poison ivy, prickly heat, and short tempers are common. These kind of Pitta disorders tend to calm down as the weather gets cooler. And the diet and lifestyle changes emphasize coolness, cool foods, avoidance of chilies and spices, especially difficult for New Mexicans. And, because I think this is based in New Mexico. And cool climates. So people with excessive Pitta need to exercise at the coolest part of the day. So coffee, alcohol, and tobacco should be completely avoided. Although the occasional beer may be relaxing for a Pitta person.
Interesting.
Black tea may also be used occasionally with a little milk and a pinch of cardamom, which sounds good. So general guidelines for balancing Pitta. Avoid excess heat, avoid excessive oil, avoid excessive steam, limit salt intake, eat cooling, non-spicy foods, and exercise during the cooler part of the day.
Okay.
So far, I feel like I'm a combination of the first two. Maybe?
Yeah. Okay. I could see that. I don't think I resonate with Pitta. But I know somebody who is checking all of the boxes.
Okay.
Like everything you said, I'm like, oh yeah, definitely, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm definitely more Pitta than I am. Sorry, that's my dog.
He was confirming.
Versus Vata, but
Yeah.
all right. So Kapha is the energy of lubrication.
Okay.
So Kapha types are blessed with strength, endurance, and stamina. In balance, they tend to have sweet, loving dispositions and be stable and grounded. Their skin is oily and smooth. And physically, Kapha people may gain weight easily and have a slow metabolism. They tend to shun exercise. They have thick skin.
I could understand that.
I mean, I don't know.
Same.
Exactly. It's not that I shun exercise, it's just that, like, it's hard.
Yeah.
They have thick skin and their bodies and muscles are well developed. Their eyes are large and attractive with thick, long lashes and brows. Kapha people evacuate slowly and feces tend to be soft, pale, and oily.
Okay.
Perspiration is moderate and sleep is deep and prolongated. Kapha types are attracted to sweet, salty, and oily foods, but their constitution is most balanced by bitter, astringent, and pungent tastes. Okay, I lied. Maybe I'm a little bit more of this one. Psychologically, Kapha people tend to be calm, tolerant, and forgiving. However, they may become lethargic. While they may be slow to comprehend, their long-term memory is excellent. When out of balance, Kapha tend to experience greed, envy, attachment, and possessiveness. In the external world, Kapha tendencies toward groundedness, stability, and attachment help them to earn and hold on to money.
Okay.
So they are more likely to have diseases connected to the water principle, such as flu, sinus congestion, and other diseases involving mucus. Sluggishness, excess weight, diabetes, water retention, and headaches are also common. Dude, this is me. Kapha can become more aggravated as the moon gets full because there's a tendency for water retention at that time.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, so dietary considerations for the Kapha. Dietary guidelines for Kapha people stress bitter, astringent, and pungent tastes. They actually need foods that will invigorate their minds while limiting their overall consumption of food. They should avoid dairy products and fats of any kind, especially fried or greasy foods. But those are the good kind.
Right.
They need less grain than Pitta or Vata constitutions, with buckwheat and millet being optimal grains. And then barley, rice, and corn. All vegetables are good for Kapha, but one should emphasize leafy greens and vegetables grown above ground more than root vegetables, while avoiding very sweet, sour, or juicy vegetables. They can eat raw vegetables, although steamed or stir-fried are easier to digest. And very sweet or sour fruits should be avoided, with the more stringent and drying fruits being preferable, such as apples, apricots, cranberries, mangoes, peaches, and pears.
That's interesting. I wonder if this whole approach is coming from the perspective of prevention when you are out of balance. And let's say out of balance, not just that I've had too much of something or not enough of something, but having like a disease or disorder. If putting these things back in balance would help in those instances, or if more methods or things are needed in order to create balance.
Yeah, so I've saw an Ayurvedic provider a few years ago, and they started with a full detox. Like it was like I forget how long it was, 2-week detox, and like you had to drink this certain tea and have this certain foods to like fully detox, to then kind of restart with what your body needed. So like they did like this whole intake and determined, I can't remember what I was determined to be, but what 3 were my, which was of the 3. Yeah. And then they based the protocols off of how to emphasize those different things.
Okay.
And decrease whatever wasn't what I was supposed to be.
Okay. So clearing you out and starting you from the beginning again.
Yeah. So like, let's say that my kapha was too prominent, then they would have you make sure you're just straight, just the bitter, astringent, pungent foods, and getting exercise, avoiding the heavy foods, those type of things.
When was there, I don't know if you can remember this because it was probably a while ago, but was there like a protocol as far as like you were mentioning earlier with the Vata, I think, like eating every 2 hours or something like that? Was there a protocol of like, you're going to eat these types of foods at this time?
In general, yeah.
Okay.
I wasn't able to kind of continue because I ended up getting a really bad allergic reaction. Or it could have been just that I was completely detoxing and it caused this massive like hives reaction. So I didn't end up finishing, but So general guidelines for balancing kapha: get plenty of exercise, avoid heavy foods, keep active, avoid dairy, avoid iced foods or drinks, vary your routine, avoid fatty oily foods, eat light dry foods, and no daytime naps.
Ugh. I don't like any of that.
I know, right? Like, none of that sounds good. I don't like it.
No.
Yeah. There's also other protocols, like as to what time you should get up, depending on what is more prominent for you, what's better for you. Should you use cold water in the morning? Should you use warm water in the morning? All that sort of stuff. So yeah. I find this one, I love the idea of this one. I don't know, it just really speaks to me more than any of the others that I've kind of studied.
Yeah.
But because it just makes sense to me that you have a certain type of body and therefore you should treat it a certain type of way versus like everybody should be vegan or everybody should be this, that, and the other, and it just makes sense that way. I've heard of like the blood type diet, and I don't know if that's kind of like a similar thought process, but something about this makes more sense to me than just your blood type.
I mean, I don't know much about the blood type diet, but I think from this perspective, they're looking at several different factors. It's not just one trait, one thing that they're looking at. So
yeah, and it's not saying that you don't have one or the other of these. Like, you're a combination of all, just some are more prominent than others. So yeah, so that's the modalities that I got going on.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a good one to continue to do research on. I think that's something that can fit so well for people. One of the things about finding these different modalities is that people might be drawn more to traditional Chinese medicine or Ayurveda or whatever else. So being able to have options and then find what resonates most or what you want to explore more, what you want to learn more, what fits better for you.
Yeah, and I just want to say that if you do want to look into any of these, sorry, my dog is like having a heart attack right now. If you want to look into any of these, I do recommend that you do your research on who you're going to.
Yeah.
You don't want to go to someone who just says that they do Chinese medicine or does Ayurveda. You want someone who has a lot of background in this and, read the reviews, read their credentials and stuff like that. So
Yeah, for sure.
so,
Cool.
Yep. So that's all I have today.
All right.
So like us, share us, review us, follow us on all of the platforms. And we love to hear from you. We have an email, curiousmysticspodcast@gmail.com. You can text us on, I think there's a little button on our website. So,
Do it. All the
Yep.
things. Stay
curious.